Hi, today we are doing with the topic called transaction processing system. So this is about we'll be dealing with database and also how the transaction processing system. What are the different types OLAP, OLTP, things like that. As we know, what is meant by database is nothing but your collection of data centrally to some enterprise. So essential to operation of the enterprise. So it contains the only record of enterprise activity. It's an asset in its own right. It contains the historical data which can guide the enterprise strategy of interest to other enterprise. State of database mirrors state of enterprise. So it also tells about the state of the database mirrors and also what is the state of your enterprise. And that database should be persistent and it should be stored permanently and should be accessed by all your users, your enterprise users, and also your customers or clients. So that will help you out in accessing the data and storing and retrieving. Database thing. Database is centrally located where you can store the data. There must be some software or a system so that it can manage this database. So this dbms is nothing but a program or a software that manages a database. It supports an high level data access. Example, you take your sql programming where you do an application describes database access using that language. So whatever the application they wanted, they can use this database, and the dbms interprets statements of language to perform requested database access. After all, a dbms is there where you store the database. There is a software or a program where you can access it. An application can access the data storage using this sql statements. So coming up to this, how we can use it in the enterprise thing, how we can make it more reliable to the users or also the technology. So this is about the transaction. So what do you mean by transaction is when an event in the real world changes the state of an enterprise. When the real world changes, whatever the event changes the state of an enterprise, a transaction is set to be executed. So to cause the corresponding change in the database state also. So within an online database you take, the event causes the transaction to be executed in a real time. So transaction is an application program with special properties, so to guarantee it maintains a database correctness. So that is about the transaction. So now what is meant by transaction processing system is the transaction execution is controlled by a TP monitor. So creates the abstraction of the transaction analogous to the way an operating system creates the abstraction of the process. The TP monitor and the dbms together guarantee the special properties of transaction. So the transaction processing system consists of your monitor, your database, and your transactions. Now we look on to the transaction processing block diagram. So here you can see at the bottom most you can see the TP monitor and your hard disk or storage, that is a database, and your dbms, which is software. So these are the transactions, they will be interacting with your dbms software and those will be stored. So the transactions can read or you can write or you can access the information from the database. Okay. When you want to set up a transaction in your enterprise, what are the system requirements and how should it be when a transaction is taking place? So what are the requirements or the possibilities or the concern we must know about the transaction? So one is high availability, that is online. It must be operational when enterprises functioning. So high reliability correctly tracks the state, does not lose any data, controlled concurrency. High throughput, many users, many transactions per second. Low response time, it should be an online, the users are waiting. So that is about the system requirements. Now we'll continue with that. So we have high availability, high reference, like high availability, reliability, and things like that. We do have a long lifetime. So the complex systems are not easily replaced. So it must be designed so that it should be easily extended as the needs of the enterprise change. And security, the sensitive information must be carefully protected since the system is accessible to many users. So you have to use authorization, authentication, encryption process to make it more like um, more confidential, so that more abstract or more reliable with that data. The roles in design, implementation, and maintenance of your TPS. So what are the design, and when you take a transaction processing system, how does it implement out? So you have a system analyst and database designer and application programmer. So this system analysis is nothing but it specifies a system using input from the customer, provides complete description of functionality from the customers and the user point of view. So that is about the role of a custom system analyst. When you take a database designer, he specifies the structure of the data which will be stored in the database. Application programmer, he implements all the application program or a transaction that can access the data and support the enterprise rule. Along with the whatever we say system analyst, database designer, we do have a database administrator. He maintains the database once the system is operational. Space allocation, performance optimization, database security. You have a system administrator also. He maintains all the transaction processing systems such as your monitors, interconnection of hardware, software modules, deals with failure and conjunction. So after all, we learned about transaction, how the block diagram came into, and what are the system requirements. So where do we use this transaction into? What's the most applicability? The technology which came into with the transaction was OLTP and OLAP applications. So the customers or the users are very fond of this recent growing technology of your online marketing, online stores. Everything is based on all the transaction thing. So you have online transaction processing, that is OLTP, and online analytical processing. So this online transaction processing, it's nothing but your customer oriented, and it handles day to day handling of the transaction that results from an enterprise operation. So day to day activities will be updated here, and it also maintains a correspondence between your database stage and an enterprise stage. So, and when you take an online analytical processing, this only is used for your market oriented, only by the analyst people if they want to analyze the growth of sales rate from this month, quarter year, or in quarter month, those things. And this will be used for analysis of information in your database for the purpose of making your management decisions. So what's the rate of the growth of a particular product or a particular sales rate? So that will be your analytical processing. So online analytical processing, so let me see how it analyzes the historical data also. If you want the growth rate or a sales rate for a quarter, we do analyze the whole data, the historical data. That will be, it will be of large amounts like terabytes. Using complex query you have to use it, and due to the volume of the data and the complexity of the queries, the OLAP uses a data warehouse. The data warehouse is nothing but a repository of historical data which is being generated from OLTP or any other sources. And also will be using a data mining concept, where the use of data warehouse to discover the relationship that might influence the enterprise strategy. Now, what are the examples of this? Is a supermarket. When you take OLTP is event. Let me take an example where event happens where you can buy a 3 cans of soup and 1 box of crackers is brought. So you update your database to reflect that event. So OLAP is the last winter in all the stores in the Northeast. How many customers bought this soup and crackers together? And the data mining is, what are there any interesting combination of food customers frequently brought together. So this is how the difference between your OLAP, OLTP and data mining, how it happens and how the data analysis takes place in each and every point of view, from the user point of view, from the analyst point of view, from the storage, from the research point of view. So whatever the combinations what you do, that it takes place. So that is about the thing about what is the difference between your OLAP, OLTP and data mining. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to tell about a few words on this topic. Thank you.